Welcome back, everyone. My name's Doug Burson, and I'm a CPA who focuses on small businesses just like yours. And today we've got great news, and that's that we're all, hopefully, at least most of us, are going to be able to get this loan completely forgiven. And the loan we're talking about, of course, is the PPP loan. So today we're going to cover the 3508 EZ form and exactly how to go through it, what the questions mean, and help you get this thing filled out to make sure you get complete forgiveness and that you do it at the right time. So this will be a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a heavier video, but I truly think you're going to get a lot of value from this one, and it's really going to help you get this done and get it done the right way. So if you're finding value with that, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to keep giving you more information all the time. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. In order to be able to use the EZ form, you have to be able to check one of three boxes. And what are those three boxes? Well, reading right from the instructions, what we're really talking about is the self-employed individual, independent contractor, sole proprietor. So in other words, the guy who has a business who doesn't have any employees, just a standard self-employed, maybe you're over-the-road truck driver, maybe you build fences, maybe you walk dogs, maybe you're an attorney but you don't have any employees. So we're talking about the sole prop with no employees. If that's you, you can check the first box and this form is the one for you. But what if that's not you? Well, then the next type is if you are a borrower who did not reduce the salary of your employees by more than 25% during the covered period. And we'll talk about the covered period or the alternative period in a minute. But if you did not reduce that, and if your employees, you were able to maintain the full-time equivalents, and we've talked about the full-time equivalents in a previous video too, but if you did not have to reduce the number of your employees during this covered period, so make it simple, same payroll, same employees, maybe a little bit of an adjustment, but for the most part, no more of a reduction than 25%, same number of employees. If that's you, you can check that box and you can use this form too. And then there's one other class that can be using the 3508, and that's the ones that did not reduce wages by more than 25% during the covered or alternative period. And of course, we're talking about people who made less than 100,000. Don't forget the 100,000 cap, so let's not get confused on that. But the borrower was unable to operate. So what this is talking about is, let's say you're a restaurant or a bar who was closed and you just haven't been able to open because the local guidelines, the health department, whatever in your area said you can't open. Well, you're not going to be punished at this point. So if that's you, then you can check this box. And that's really what we're talking about, those three types. So if that's you, let's get going and go through this thing line by line and help you make sure you understand it. So one of the things we need to talk about is the covered period and the alternative period. And I'm going to be real honest. Don't worry about it, all right? The covered period is the only one you need to worry about. The alternative period, if we get to December and you still haven't been able to fulfill everything and you haven't been able to get it all done, then we may worry about the alternative period. But remember, we now have 24 weeks. So there's no point to make life hard and deal with an alternative period for this part and a covered period for that part. Let's just focus on the covered period. And then if that becomes a problem, then we can worry about the more complicated stuff. You're right. Let's keep it simple. So the covered period is either one, the 24-week period beginning with the date of the loan disbursement. So in other words, if the money went in your account the day you got the money, you have 24 weeks from that day. Now remember, it can't go past December 31st. That's when this whole thing ends, but 24 weeks from the day it went in your bank account. Or you could choose, if everything's, you already got it all wrapped up and you want to be done, you could choose 8 weeks as your covered period from the day it went in your bank account. Now, I don't know why most people are going to do the 8-week over the 24-week. At this point, I don't see where it's going to matter for most companies. So once again, let's keep it simple. We can make things complicated, but if you wanted it complicated, you wouldn't be here. So let's keep it simple. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to ignore the alternative period. If we get into September or October, I start seeing some of you are having trouble and it becomes a real big deal, we'll go back and cover that, but I just don't think it's necessary. So let's keep life simple. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just take a look at the application. And there it is. So here's the application, and it really is a pretty simple form. So let's kind of work through the basics here. The borrower name, that's just the name of your business. Or if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have a corporation, that's going to be just your name. So we're just going to say your address. So I'm not going to waste time on that. Then we get down to the loan number. So the SBA PPP loan number, you should be able to find that in the documentation that you originally did. And if you don't know it, just go ahead and check with your bank and ask them, what was my PPP loan number? But I think if you go back and look at your original paperwork, you're going to find that information, and they're going to be able to give you those first lines. So just get that straight from your bank. Don't stress about it. Don't get too worried. It's probably in your paperwork. If not, it's called the loan officer. I guarantee you, your loan officer wants a 1% loan off of his books. So he's going to be glad to help. And then we go down to the employees at the time of loan application. Now remember, if you've been paying attention to me all along, I've said all along, documentation, documentation, documentation. And now it's time. Hopefully you've done it, and you can go back and just look at your paperwork and show how many employees you have. So 5 employees. Now remember, in order for you to do this, they're going to have to be the same from the beginning and the end unless you were in that third category. So for most of you, this number and that number have to be the same number. Otherwise, you're going to run into a problem. And now we're down to the idle advance amount. And this has caused a lot of contention. A lot of people have been really upset about it. And this isn't really the time to argue about it because right now we're just doing the application. It is what it is. So if you got that, remember that $1,000, $2,000, up to $10,000 advance for the number of employees you had, you have to put that in right here. And so if you got a $5,000 idle advance, don't try to hide it. It's only going to come back to bite you. Put it in. And the idle application number, if you remember, you were getting emails from SBA. They came in, and on that email there was a reference number that showed you what the idle loan number was, or the idle advance number was. That's the number you're going to need to use right here. So go back and check your email, and that's where you can find that number. And it's going to be a pretty easy number to do because remember, for those advances, we did that application, woke up one morning, and there's $3,000 in your bank or whatever it was. You're like, where'd this come from? And it was that loan or the idle advance. And they never told us anything. It was crazy. But if you go back and check your email, you'll find that number. And now we're on to the payroll frequency. And the payroll frequency, not rocket science here, how often do you pay your employees? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, twice a month, monthly, not rocket science, so bi-weekly. And then the covered period. We already talked about that. The covered period started with the date the money went in your bank account. So if it went in your bank account on April the 5th, that's when your time frame starts. And then from there, you're going to count forward 24 weeks, okay? Unless you want to do the 8-week, but most of us are going to do 24 weeks to make this low stress. So we don't have to worry about alternative periods and alternative or covered. We're just going to do 24 and make life simple. So you're going to go ahead and count out 24 weeks from that date and put it on the form. Alternative period, like I said, why make your life hard? Now, if you're going to have to answer yes to this next question, you need to be having somebody help you with this directly. Don't be trying to do this yourself and taking a chance on a $2 million loan. Get yourself an advisor that knows this thing inside and out. Don't take a chance unless you're really confident. If you are, good for you. But I want to make sure that you're getting everything covered because these $2 million loans, those are the ones that are going to check out the most, it sounds like. So you better make sure you got this thing right. But for most of you who are watching this, this isn't you, so we're going to ignore that. And then we get to here. All of a sudden, this form that was an easy form ceased to be easy. Payroll costs. Well, I don't know. How much was it? Right? So I told you from the beginning, Documentation, documentation, documentation. And so at this point, I'm going to bring up another form. And this is a very simple form. I showed you guys this early on in this deal. And what I've done is I've put it right down below and go down there and link, pause this video. I think it's probably a good idea if you do that. Go ahead and pause the video now, go down to that link. I've made this available for you to use as a tool to help you put together these numbers because it's going to make life a lot simpler. If you have to do the long form, I've got another one for that that's a lot more challenging. But who wants to do challenging, right? So if you need to do the long one, next week probably I'll do another video that covers how to do the long form. But let's keep it simple because this is supposed to be easy, right? So go get that form right now and jump right back in. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you did what I said and you went and got that form. It's going to help you through this whole process. So as we said, you're going to put in the approved loan amount, which I don't know what yours was, but go look back at your documentation. You'll have it. And there you're going to have it. And then the approval date, we said was April 5th, 2020. And then this says 8 week, but it depends on which way you're going, 8 week or 24 weeks. You can roll it forward. I'm not going to worry about putting that on there for exactly, but you can see already what this is showing you that you have to spend of the 50, at least 30,000 needs to be in payroll. And then you can do up to 20,000 and other things. And all you're going to need to do is go back through your records. It's just a way to help you keep your thoughts together. And especially if you haven't spent it all yet. You can go ahead and start this now. And over the next several weeks, just drop it in the spreadsheet each week. Drop it in, drop it in. And as you go along, you're going to see that number just keep dropping. So for instance, if my gross wages the first week were $4,000 for my employees, and the officer took another $1,000 for the week, and then we pay health insurance of $250 a week, and maybe retirement $250 a week again. You can see we now have $44,500 left that we need to spend. Next week, same thing, and just each week drop this in. But this week we also had to pay utilities, and maybe our rent was due for another $2,500. Now you can see we're down to 36,000. What this is showing you is that of the 30,000 minimum, we've already used 11,000 for payroll and 3,000 in our other expenses. So we can just drop this thing down, fill it out however you need to. Okay, so there we are. We're gone through, in this case, which is probably a little extreme, probably won't happen this quickly for most of you, but at the end of this 7-week period, we've already spent 38,000 in payroll and 18,000 in our 40%. But since we spent more on the payroll side, at this point we've already overspent. We could go ahead and apply for forgiveness, and we would have the information now right here to go back to our other form and fill it out. So in this case, we have actually spent $38,500 in payroll costs. So we've got $38,500 in payroll costs, and in this case we've had $15,000 in rent, and then we had $3,000 in utilities. So now we just add these numbers together, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've got $56,500. And remember, our original loan was $50,000. And so then we drop that in. Okay, so at this point it said take our payroll costs and divide them by 60%. And then so our forgiveness amount is the smaller of line 5, line 6, or line 7. So the smaller number in this case was 50,000. So we were able to get the full amount forgiven. And that's really all there is to it. It's all about documentation, like I've been saying all along. But let's just pretend that this one was 25,000. Okay? So if we take 25,000, and that gives me $41,667. Now we would have only been forgiven $41,667 because that's the smaller of the three numbers. And how did that really occur? Well, 25,000, 15,000, and 3,000 gives me 43. And because we didn't hit it all of our 60%, it got limited, and we can only do 41,667 is the maximum amount that's going to be deductible under that scenario. Okay? So that should make it pretty simple, and that's really all there is to it. If you do that spreadsheet that we provided for you, it's going to make this deal so easy. And that's the whole point here, is we want to make this thing as easy as we possibly can. So that takes care of that. But then we come down to this point, and this is where we have to do some representations. So the dollar amount for which forgiveness is requested was used for what they told us we had to use it for: rent, utilities, lease. We used it for payroll costs. It was at least 60%, and nobody, like the officer, didn't make more than 2.5 times of 2.5 months worth of 2019 compensation. We covered that in a previous video. So if you're self-employed, take whatever you made last year, divide by 12 times 2.5. That's the number, is the maximum that you as an owner can make. That's not your employees. Remember, your employees got a much larger number, around 40,000. But you as an owner are capped at 2.5, and it's making sure you remember that here. So you're saying, I promise that's what really happened. You're understanding. And the next one is that, hey, if I lie, I know I committed a crime. Think about that before you lie on this. Make sure you get it right. We got 24 weeks. Don't screw around. Do it right. The borrower did not reduce wages by more than 25%. We talked about that. Don't lie on this thing. It's not worth it. Do it right, or wait another couple weeks. Don't try to rush into this just to get it off your back and regret it. You verified the payments, so you've actually looked at your payroll reports. You didn't just say, well, give or take a little. You actually did your work. Once again, documentation. And then you have to submit the documentation to the lender. Now, hopefully the lenders aren't going to write off on this without you doing that, but you're still certifying that you did. So even if the lender doesn't make you do it, you still said you did. So take this serious, because the next one says, oh, if you don't, we can put you in jail or give you a pretty nasty fine, and I don't think this is worth going to jail or losing our business or wrecking our family, all the rest of that. Take this serious. Do it right. Same thing. You got to just do it right, okay? It's really that simple. Do it right. And then one thing that you need to understand, though, is while we're certifying all this, we have to submit documentation. I believe that may not be covered in here, but there are certain things you're going to have to submit. So let me see if I got it right down here for you. I believe I have it. Yes, I thought I did. So each borrower must submit. You're going to have to submit bank statements, payroll records from your payroll provider, somebody like us or ADP. You're going to need those payroll records. If you do it yourself, you're going to need copies of canceled checks. You're going to need tax forms showing that you've actually filed your 941s or are going to file them, and don't act like you're going to and not. I've heard people talking like that. this thing ain't worth prison. Do it right. So copies of payroll records, payment receipts, canceled checks. They may need to submit copies of your lease agreements or lease canceled checks showing that you've been paying the lease. Verification that you actually did pay the retirement contributions, that you actually paid the health insurance plan. What else has it got in here? Copies of invoices for utilities. Once again, bank statements, canceled checks, receipts. You're going to have to submit that to the banks, and some banks are going to be stickier than others, but you're going to need to have it. And then on top of that, there's stuff that you're not going to have to submit, but they say you better have it, and you got to have copies of it. So you're going to have paperwork to show that it really was the covered period. Or if you did the alternative period, which we already talked about, you probably don't need to, but if you do, you're going to have to document how you came up with those calculations to make sure they're accurate. You're going to have to show, especially if you're taking some of the safe harbors, you're going to have to show that you offered the person the work and you did all the right things and that that person refused it. Because if you just say it and you don't have documentation, this isn't going to go well. If you were one of the ones that's going to take the I couldn't open because they said so, you better have that shown. So take copies from your state or from the health department or whatever. Have copies of those records, because a year from now, 2 years from now, some crazy auditor out there wants to come back and double check things. You don't want to have to try to go back and get them to verify it. You want to have that in your file and be able to make this painless and easy. Don't depend on other people. Take care of this for yourself. What else we got in here? The borrower must retain all such document in its files for 6 years after the date the loan is forgiven or repaid in full. So we don't want to get out to 2025 sitting on our boat having a cocktail and have the auditor show up and say, I want all those records, and you say, I didn't do the documentation to start with, because now he's going to take your boat and your cocktail and it's not going to be good. So once again, like I said all along, documentation, take care of this, and really that's it, guys. It's not that bad. I know this took longer than most of my other videos, but I wanted to take the time to go through this line by line so you could see it and give you the tool for that spreadsheet. Once again, if you haven't done it yet, go ahead, go down, click the link, get that spreadsheet. It's a real simple tool. I know a lot of people have fancy stuff out there, and I've got one of those too for some of my harder clients. But this is the easy form. So we want the easy spreadsheet that makes it real simple so we can get this all tracked. And if you need the tougher form, that's fine. I'll have that one for you in a week or so, and we'll share that too. But that should do it. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll do my best to address them. I've tried to address them as we've gone along. I know I've missed a few of you, and sorry, time's limited. But we have addressed a lot of the questions that you guys leave. I'm trying to be helpful as I can. And some of you guys have helped answer some of the questions for me, and that's great. If there's some experiences you want to share, that's wonderful too. Once again, go ahead and subscribe. There's going to be more coming, because I'd love to say this is the last word, but I'm sure it's not. So have a wonderful 4th of July, and hopefully this relieves a lot of your stress and you can enjoy the 4th and spend time with your family, and we'll talk again soon. Why am I having such a stinking hard time with this?